My husband ended our marriage through a text message and drained our joint account. He was completely unprepared for the consequences. The message came through while I was assisting customers at my boutique. I'm departing and relocating to Miami with my girlfriend, who is 20 years old. I've gone ahead and cleared out our joint account, ha ha. My hands remained steady as I read it. I maintained a steady voice while assisting Mrs. Peterson in selecting a scarf. The sole indication that my husband of 12 years had just obliterated our marriage through a text was a subtle tension in my eyes. I held off until Mrs. Peterson departed. Her purchase elegantly wrapped in our distinctive silver paper, before I began typing my reply. Wishing you all the best. I'm Claire, and at 38. I just experienced the most heartless farewell imaginable. While Mark may have been reveling in his dramatic departure, picturing me in despair over his treachery, I was simply closing up my boutique for the day with a sense of calm. For months, the signs had been evident. The long hours spent at the office that never seemed to reflect in his paycheck. The abrupt alterations to the password on his phone. He had begun hitting the gym with unwavering dedication, investing in a fresh wardrobe, all in an effort to reclaim his youthful spirit. 3 months ago, I discovered a receipt for dinner for two at a fancy restaurant on a night he had insisted he was working late. That very evening, I had opened a new bank account at another bank. A week later, when he brought up the idea of merging our accounts for simplicity, I readily agreed, all the while transferring my personal savings to the new account. The shared account he had just cleared out? It held just the right amount to prevent him from becoming wary. Approximately 2 months of consistent contributions. The remainder was securely stored. Accompanied by meticulous documentation of each dubious transaction he had conducted throughout the previous year. Once more, my phone vibrated. There's no need to plead. Tomorrow. Melissa and I will be departing. I will arrange to have my belongings sent for later. Melissa. The recently appointed receptionist at his office. I encountered her at the company Christmas party. Observed her laughter echoing exuberantly at Mark's jokes. She had brushed her fingers against his arm, believing herself unseen. She was youthful enough to be his daughter. Innocent enough to believe she was one of a kind. I chose not to reply to his message. Instead, I reached out to my attorney. The one I had spoken to 2 months prior when I discovered the hotel charges on our credit card statement. It is time, I stated plainly. He has just taken his step. The documents are prepared. She responded. I will take care of that first thing tomorrow. Should I arrange for him to be served in Miami? Take your time. Allow him to believe he's emerged victorious for now. Yet another piece from Mark. I understand that this may be challenging for you. Time waits for no one, after all. Your little shop must provide a nice distraction for you. My quaint little shop. The thriving boutique I created from the ground up. The one that produced greater earnings than his role in middle management. The individual whose earnings I had meticulously maintained apart from our shared financial resources. A smile crept across my face as I envisioned the certified letters awaiting him in Miami. Allow him to savor his moment of victory. I dedicated that evening to our home. My house, inherited from my grandmother, remains in my name. Despite Mark's persistent suggestions to include him on the deed. Another fortunate intuition that had yielded results. As I sorted through the paperwork my lawyer required, I stumbled upon our wedding album. Mark appeared so distinct back then, prior to his midlife crisis, transforming him into a shadow of his former self. Nowadays, he donned shirts that clung uncomfortably to his softening waistline, made an effort to engage with the 20-somethings at his workplace, and employed slang that felt absurd when spoken by a man of 45. My phone incessantly buzzed with messages from him, each one dripping with condescension, surpassing the previous. For months, I've been meticulously crafting this plan. Melissa comprehends me in ways you never would. Everything will be all right. Perhaps you'll come across someone who is more aligned with your age. I have already informed my family. They acknowledge that we have drifted apart. Ultimately, there's no blame to assign here. I captured each message in a screenshot, meticulously organizing them into my evidence folder. Allow him to continue digging his own grave. My lawyer would relish his nonchalant confession of premeditation, his joyful declaration about depleting our account. The previous text piqued my interest. Just so you know, I booked our flights and hotel using the joint card. Think of it as my farewell present, haha. Flawless. I contacted the credit card company. This is Mrs. Harrison on the line. I must urgently report fraudulent charges and cancel my card right away. Absolutely, ma'am. Could you specify the charges? Today, I secured 2 first-class tickets to Miami. Charges for accommodations at the Royal Palm. I will need to take my husband off the list of authorized users. Is there any documentation available regarding the fraud? Messages from my husband confessing that he utilized our shared card to arrange a trip with his girlfriend after depleting our bank account. I would be glad to pass them along. The representative's polished demeanor barely concealed her satisfaction as she canceled the charges. Mark and Melissa would arrive at the airport tomorrow only to discover that their tickets had been invalidated. Their hotel reservation has been canceled. Once more, my phone vibrated. There's no need to stress about the house. You can remain there until you discover a more suitable option. I genuinely found that hilarious. Did he genuinely believe he had any right to my grandmother's house? Had his pride swelled to such proportions that he no longer remembered who held the title? Yet another buzz. I understand how much the shop means to you. We can agree on a reasonable compensation for your portion. My portion. Regarding my enterprise. That I had created on my own, financed on my own, and developed on my own, while he grumbled about my extended hours and dismissed it as merely a pastime. I filled a glass with the fine wine I had been reserving for a moment of significance. This has been validated. Tomorrow, Mark was set to uncover some challenging realities regarding property law and the division of assets. Tonight, I will relish the tranquility and outline the next part of my story. The morning unfolded with a barrage of increasingly irate messages from Mark. What on earth happened to our credit card? The airline is refusing to honor our tickets. Our reservation at the hotel has been cancelled. Please respond to me. I muted my phone and made my way to my boutique. Friday marked the peak of our week, and I was excited to dive into a fresh shipment of designer handbags waiting to be unpacked. Life continues. Even when your partner leaves you for a receptionist who could easily be his daughter. At approximately midday, his mother reached out with a call. Claire, my dear. Mark has shared all the details with us. Regarding your tendency to be controlling. The way you pushed him away. He claims you're acting out of spite, creating issues with his travel arrangements. I placed her on speaker as I set up a window display. Did he bring up draining our joint account and putting tickets for him and his girlfriend on our credit card? Quietude. Then, he mentioned that you gave him no alternative. You had been unapproachable and aloof. Barbara, I possess his messages. Shall I read them to you? The moment he boasted about pocketing our cash? Or perhaps the instance when he ridiculed my age? Yet another pause. He appeared somewhat harsh. I informed him that the text message was not suitable. Thank you for the call, Barbara. I have always held a fondness for you. However, I believe it would be most prudent to conclude this discussion at this point. My attorney has recommended limited interaction with Mark's family throughout the legal process. What are the proceedings? So soon? Farewell, Barbara. As the afternoon wore on, Amanda, Mark's sister, was busy sharing family gossip with their mutual friends. It seems that Mark and Melissa found themselves at a budget motel close to the airport. Their aspirations in Miami momentarily interrupted. He had attempted to utilize his personal credit cards, but they had been maxed out for months. I observed yet another concerning sign. I received a call from my lawyer with some news. An emergency hearing has been set for Monday. Considering his acknowledgement of depleting the joint account and the recorded credit card fraud, we are well positioned to freeze all remaining assets. Has he received the documents yet? Not at this moment. However, he will receive the documents at his new motel location. In that regard, his girlfriend's social media is offering compelling proof. She has been sharing updates about their adventure throughout the day, featuring some particular remarks regarding you. I smiled as I reflected on my own records, a year's accumulation of questionable charges, hotel receipts, and text messages that indicated intent. Mark was so consumed by his elaborate plan for freedom that he failed to realize I could be observing, biding my time, and getting ready. A buzz from my phone signaled another incoming text. You believe you have it all figured out. However, I duplicated all the financial records of the boutique. Half of that business belongs to me. I sent the text to my lawyer, adding it to the expanding collection of Mark's errors. Allow him to discover the realities of separate assets and business ownership through experience. At times, the most effective form of retribution is to be well equipped. The emergency hearing on Monday exceeded all my expectations. Mark arrived in his youthful attire, sporting designer jeans that were a tad too snug for his age, paired with a blazer that shouted midlife crisis. Melissa stood outside, her youth starkly illuminated by the unforgiving courthouse lights. My lawyer laid out our evidence with precision, Mark's jubilant message about draining our account, his fraudulent use of credit cards, and his recorded pattern of concealed expenses. Every item meticulously gathered through months of silent contemplation. Your Honor, while my client acknowledges some impulsive choices, it is important to highlight that Mrs. Harrison's behavior has been both spiteful and deliberate. Determining? My attorney responded with a counterargument. Are you referring to being cautious? My client safeguarded her individual assets and kept meticulous documentation of her husband's questionable actions. That's not spiteful. That's a clever strategy. The judge examined my paperwork, including the deed for the house indicating separate property, the incorporation documents for the boutique solely in my name, and the meticulous division of business and personal finances that Mark had frequently criticized. The judge, Mr. Harrison, spoke directly to Mark. You confessed through a text message that you intentionally drained a joint account and utilized shared credit cards to finance a trip with your girlfriend. Are you refuting this? Mark shifted in his seat, a sense of unease washing over him. I was simply attempting to start anew. Through the act of engaging in financial deception? The judge arched an eyebrow. So now you're asserting ownership of property that the documentation clearly indicates is distinct from marital assets? Our marriage saw the business flourish. Mark's attorney made another attempt. My client has the right to. The business was founded prior to the marriage, my lawyer interjected, and Mrs. Harrison upheld a clear distinction between her business and personal finances at all times. We maintain a comprehensive record of every cent invested and earned. I observed Mark's expression as the truth began to dawn on him. He believed this would be a simple task, drain our accounts, escape with his girlfriend, and perhaps lay claim to half of my business during the divorce. He had never taken the time to grasp my need for separation, often ridiculing my meticulous records as mere obsession. The judge announced that there is ample evidence of financial misconduct. All shared assets are currently frozen while we await the final dissolution. Mr. Harrison must return any funds taken from joint accounts within 24 hours. But that money has vanished, Mark insisted. We utilized it for. I recommend that you seek a method to substitute it. The judge interrupted him. And Mr. Harrison, the court holds a rather unfavorable opinion regarding the use of shared credit cards to finance escapades with lovers. Outside the courthouse, I caught Melissa inquiring with Mark about their plans for Miami. His reply faded into the echo of my heels striking the marble floor with assurance. As I returned to the enterprise he had never grasped or valued. In the weeks that followed, Mark resorted to a series of increasingly desperate actions. He attempted to assert that the boutique was his brainchild. He recalled putting money into it during its initial phase. He even implied that he had been my business partner from the very beginning, assertions that were swiftly debunked by my detailed documentation. My lawyer noted his growing desperation. His girlfriend's social media reveals that they are currently residing in her studio apartment. It seems that life on a receptionist's salary isn't the glamorous getaway he had envisioned. Mark's family began to contact him, their tone significantly changed from the initial accusations they had made. His sister Amanda confessed, "We had no idea. He mentioned that you had been distant and domineering, and that he felt the need to break free. However, we discovered his messages, showcasing how he boasted about taking your money. That's not the sibling I believed I understood." His mother called once more, her voice trembling with emotion. "The remarks he made regarding your age and the idea of substituting you with someone younger. I taught him to be better than this. I believed I had, at least. I allowed their calls to slip into voicemail. Their support may have held significance weeks ago, but now it resembled rats fleeing a sinking vessel." The boutique flourished, amusingly propelled by the local chatter surrounding my circumstances. Women began to arrive with the intention of showing their support, frequently departing with much more than they had originally intended to purchase. One customer shared a story while purchasing a designer handbag, mentioning that their ex had attempted something similar. He believed he would seize it all in the divorce. Individuals like that never anticipate us to possess greater intelligence than they do. My phone continued to buzz intermittently with messages from Mark, his tone oscillating between fury and cunning persuasion. "Everything is ruined now. My intentions were never to cause you pain. You'll come to wish you hadn't been so vengeful. Is there a way we can come to an agreement? That venture would be nothing without my backing." I sent each message to my lawyer, without replying. Allow him to continue digging his own grave. I caught wind that Melissa might be reconsidering her decision. It seems that cohabiting in her studio apartment with a middle-aged man lacking the means for his own living space turned out to be far from the enchanting experience she had envisioned. The age gap that once sparked thrill during clandestine hotel rendezvous now appeared starkly altered under the unforgiving glare of reality. She shared insights on toxic relationships and personal growth yesterday, my lawyer noted during an update call, and changed her relationship status this morning. I found myself feeling a twinge of sympathy for Mark. Nearly. But then I recalled his, haha, after he informed me he'd drained our account. The nonchalant harshness of his remarks regarding my age. The manner in which he presumed I would be incapable without his support. Instead of pity, I experienced something different. Confidence. A sense of accomplishment in my vision. Within my serene power. I possess the strength to defend myself, even when he fails to recognize my capabilities. The concluding divorce hearing unfolded in a manner starkly contrasting with Mark's envisioned victory. His once confident demeanor had vanished, giving way to a barely masked sense of urgency. Melissa was clearly missing. According to office gossip, she had shifted her attention to a colleague of her own age. Mark arrived in his worn-out attire. The high-end wardrobe seemingly relinquished to settle the joint account he had drained. His attorney appeared weary. Likely from the effort of searching for any gaps in my detailed separation of assets. "Your Honor," Mark's attorney made one final attempt. Even with the separate property documentation in place, my client played a significant role in the expansion of his wife's business by providing moral support. Moral support? My attorney interjected. Are these text messages really meant to undermine Mrs. Harrison's business as just a small shop? Were these social media posts referring to it as her pastime? The judge had unmistakably reached a conclusion. The ultimate resolution showcased my meticulous preparation. I retained my home, my enterprise, and my individual possessions. Mark retrieved his belongings and his vehicle, which held a value lower than the debt he had incurred for it. "You've shattered me," he whispered as we exited the courthouse. "I will need to return to my parents' home." "No, Mark, you brought this upon yourself. I ensured that you wouldn't be able to bring me down either." His mother stood outside, prepared to take him to her house, his new residence at 45. Everyone was acutely aware of the irony in his situation. The individual who had ridiculed my age was now residing in his childhood bedroom, while I thrived in my flourishing business. "You orchestrated this from the very beginning," he charged. "You were aware this would unfold." "No, I simply focused on the details, and unlike you, I recognized the importance of maintaining accurate documentation." She interposed herself between us. "That will suffice, Mark. You've made quite the spectacle of yourself already." As they strolled off, I caught her beginning to confront him. "Seriously, what was going through your mind? A 2-decade-old individual? Draining financial resources? Dispatching those dreadful messages?" I observed their figures fade into the parking lot, a wave of relief washing over me. Mark believed he was crafting the conclusion to our narrative with that harsh message. Instead, he had simply set my meticulously crafted plans into action. My phone buzzed. Not with messages from Mark this time, but with alerts of fresh orders from my boutique's online store. Life was progressing, yet not in the way he had envisioned. Section 3. Part 1. 600 words. Half a year post-divorce, my boutique blossomed into a second location. I couldn't help but notice the irony. As Mark grappled with the challenges of reconstructing his existence, the quaint shop he had overlooked was flourishing. I brought on 3 new team members and launched an online store that was gaining national attention. Whispers of Mark's predicament spread through our shared connections. He had explored dating apps, yet discovered that women in his age group were not drawn to a middle-aged man residing with his parents. Young women, aware of his past through the whispers of the office, kept their distance. Melissa had seemingly cautioned her friends regarding him, distributing screenshots of his frantic efforts to regain her affection after she had departed. His professional journey faced challenges as well. The HR department of the company initiated an inquiry into his connection with a subordinate, leading to an official reprimand. The promotion he had anticipated was awarded to another individual, one who lacked a background of unsuitable interactions with the reception staff. Amanda recounted an unexpected visit to the boutique, sharing how he attempted to assert age discrimination. They claimed he was being punished for being in a relationship with someone younger. The complaint has now been officially documented in his file by HR. Seeing his sister in my store took me aback, yet her presence revealed just how deeply Mark had distanced himself from his family. "I realize we weren't there for you initially," she confessed, her fingers gliding over the smooth fabric of a silk scarf. He portrayed the victim with remarkable skill, observing his approach to every situation and his demeanor in the aftermath. "It's disheartening to think we ever placed our trust in him." My attorney consistently informed me about Mark's ongoing efforts to contest the divorce settlement. Every petition faced rejection. His assertions of inequitable distribution were disregarded, grounded in the proof of his own behavior. She told me, laughing, that he actually tried to argue his text about emptying the account was just a joke. The judge inquired whether laughter diminished the severity of theft. The boutique's success provided a surprising sense of affirmation. Local business magazines sought to highlight my narrative, not as a wronged spouse, but as a shrewd entrepreneur who safeguarded her interests. Emerging business owners sought guidance on maintaining a clear distinction between their professional and personal financial matters. "Preparation is the finest shield," I said to a young woman who brought Melissa to mind. "Always have faith in your intuition." Mark's mother would call from time to time, often following one of his notably reckless decisions. He had ventured into online gambling, seeking a swift solution to his monetary woes. He had become entangled in a pyramid scheme that guaranteed quick profits. Every effort to reclaim his past way of living only ensnared him further in difficulties. "I can't quite pinpoint where we lost our way with him," she sighed during one call. "His father and I extended our support to help him regain his footing, provided he would take accountability for his choices. Yet he continues to point fingers at others. Melissa, you, the judge, his company." I paid attention with courtesy while keeping my space. Their family drama was no longer my concern. My life had progressed, brimming with aspirations for a third boutique and the potential venture into high-end accessories. The sole testament to Mark's influence on my life was a framed screenshot displayed in my office, capturing his last message before I severed our communication. "Enjoy your quaint little shop. It will certainly keep you engaged as the years go by." Below it sat my latest business award, a testament that at times, the most effective response is to thrive according to your own standards. A year post-divorce, I celebrated the grand opening of my third boutique location. The event drew the attention of local media. But the narrative they sought to convey didn't revolve around my unsuccessful marriage. The narrative centered on a thriving entrepreneur, broadening her brand's reach. Mark's betrayal had faded into a trivial detail in the narrative of my achievements. At the event, Melissa made an unexpected entrance. She appeared more youthful than ever. Or perhaps I simply felt that much more invigorated. She shifted restlessly, gripping her purse as if it were a protective barrier. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "I took to heart everything he said about you, how you were distant, domineering, and how you failed to back his aspirations." Then I observed him attempt the same manipulation tactics on me when challenges arose. I kept organizing a showcase of fashionable sunglasses. Those weren't his aspirations, Melissa. They were ways to flee. There exists a distinction. I understand that now. She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "He attempted to take action when you locked the accounts. I initially believed my studio apartment would be a short-term arrangement. After 2 weeks of his complaints about the size of my closet and his suggestions for taking out a loan for a bigger place, I finally grasped what you meant regarding the distinction between dreams and escapes." That genuinely made me laugh. Let me take a wild guess. He had grand ambitions, but lacked the financial means to bring them to life? Precisely. Everything was bound to fall into place once his investments yielded returns, once he secured that promotion. Once his cryptocurrency surely appreciated in value. She gave a slight shake of her head. "I'm currently in a relationship with someone who is the same age as me. We carry student loans and reside in a modest apartment, yet we are in the process of creating something meaningful." Once she departed, my assistant manager leaned in and asked, "Was that the girlfriend?" I responded with a firm no. That was merely another woman who discovered the same truth I did. As I mentioned lessons, I pointed towards a young couple admiring our designer handbags. "I'm eager to discuss your vision for broadening our accessories collection." The boutique had transformed into something beyond a mere enterprise. It stood as a testament to autonomy, strength, and the significance of being ready. Emerging business leaders frequently turned to me for guidance, and I consistently highlighted the necessity of safeguarding their resources. Mark's mother reached out one final time. Not to talk about Mark, but to express her gratitude to me. She expressed that our family learned a significant lesson from you concerning the facilitation of negative actions, regarding the justification of harshness. Mark continues to reside at home, persistently attributing his issues to others. However, we are no longer standing up for him. Your contribution to our family is invaluable, illustrating the distinction between offering support and fostering dependency. As I contemplated that legacy, I examined the plans for a fourth location. Mark aimed to belittle me, to replace me with someone younger and claim half of all I had created. Instead, he had unknowingly driven me to grow even stronger, more accomplished. A message from my lawyer pinged on my phone. Mark submitted yet another petition to reconsider the settlement. The judge swiftly dismissed the case and mandated that he cover the court costs. I figured that might bring you some joy. I smiled, envisioning him in his childhood bedroom, still attempting to craft an ending that had been sealed the moment he misjudged me. At times, the most effective form of retribution lies not in seeking payback, but in personal growth and improvement. 2 years following Mark's harsh text, I got an invitation to address a women's business conference. The subject matter did not revolve around separation or treachery. The focus was on creating and safeguarding a thriving enterprise. My narrative transformed from a warning to a source of motivation. In the Q&A session, a woman inquired about the importance of maintaining a distinction between business and personal finances. My husband claims I'm overreacting. That union signifies the act of sharing all aspects of life. I responded that my ex-husband had said the same thing, right up until he attempted to take half of my business during our divorce. Have faith in your intuition. Guarding oneself isn't a sign of fear. The boutique chain expanded to 5 locations, with each one achieving greater success than its predecessor. The small shop that Mark had once ridiculed now boasted a workforce of 30 and had garnered attention in multiple national magazines. Through mutual friends, I learned that Mark had finally left his parents' house and settled into a cozy apartment above a garage. After his previous company downsized and eliminated his position during restructuring, he found himself in the position of having to accept a lower-paying job. His dating profile still portrayed him as youthful in spirit, despite the fact that his profile photo was evidently from a different era. Melissa, quite amusingly, had turned into a frequent patron at my original boutique location. Having earned her business degree, she launched her own social media consulting company. Once, she confided in me that I had inspired her, demonstrating how a woman can create something enduring rather than succumbing to hollow assurances. I displayed Mark's harsh text message prominently in my office, not as a reminder of suffering, but as evidence of my journey and progress. Below it hung a sign that proclaimed, "Success is the best revenge." During the 5-year anniversary celebration of my original boutique, I found myself speaking to my dedicated employees and cherished customers. The space had evolved from a modest little shop into the flagship store of a flourishing business empire. Mark's mother showed up, even though I hadn't extended an invitation to her. She bided her time, waiting for the crowd to disperse, before making her way to me. "I encountered Mark yesterday," she remarked, adjusting her designer dress, one she had purchased from my store. He reminisced about his glory days, reflecting on the life that might have been. He remains unaware that the divorce didn't strip him of everything. He discarded it. I reflected on that text message. His nonchalant malice. His belief that I would fall apart in his absence. How he had anticipated my pleas, my collapse, to validate his assumptions about my neediness. Instead, I had crafted something more resilient than ever. Every new boutique location stood as a powerful symbol of what women could accomplish when they embraced their brilliance instead of holding back for the sake of insecure men. The young saleswoman I had brought on board last month, who also happens to share the name Melissa, approached me with an inquiry regarding the new inventory system I had put in place. While detailing the process, I noticed my reflection in the store window. I recognized what Mark had overlooked 5 years prior. Not a woman aging, but one evolving, becoming more insightful, resilient, and accomplished. His harsh text message was intended to signify a conclusion. Rather, it marked the start of something new. Not only for myself, but for every woman who listened to my story and recognized that she deserves more than to be caught in someone else's midlife turmoil.